To complete the most significant news for this day, Y News continues. Here are the top stories. The observance of Undas this year has been generally peaceful. The Philippine National Police says only a few minor incidents were reported, as an estimated 14 million Filipinos trooped to more than 4,000 cemeteries across the country. Despite repeated reminders, police still confiscated hundreds of prohibited items such as bladed or pointed weapons, firearms and alcoholic drinks during cemetery inspections. At the Manila South Cemetery, a young man was caught while attempting to sneak in several sachets of suspected marijuana. Some visitors were also given first aid by rescue teams after experiencing dizziness due to crowd congestion. Cleanup operations are also ongoing, with around 14 truckloads of garbage collected from the Manila South Cemetery.
Oo, ang hindi lang talaga naman madisiplina yung pagtatapon ng basura. Nakita nyo naman, parang divisorya. Hindi naman natin mapigilan yung iba, kasi pag nalingat tayo, wala na, nagtatapon na ng basura.
President Rodrigo Duterte warned all members of the armed forces of the Philippines and the Philippine National Police in relation to the sexual harassment scandal among cadets in the police academy. On Thursday, the president ordered the expulsion of the 3 upperclassmen involved in the sexual assault of 2 plebes last October 6, and stressed that there is no room for such embarrassing acts in both the military and the police institutions. Duterte emphasized that he will never allow such humiliating acts under his administration, which according to him is a clear disrespect of an individual's dignity.
I don't need that kind of policeman. Not for me during my time, in my generation, for the next generation of Filipinos. You do not train a soldier or a policeman who goes out of the academy with a trauma. It's a deep psychological insult and it stays in the head.
Meanwhile, a Filipina domestic helper who has been acquitted of murder in the United Arab Emirates arrived home on Friday after spending almost 4 years in prison. Jennifer Dalquez was sentenced to death in 2014 for stabbing her employer to death after the latter threatened to rape her. The court decision was overturned in 2017 after the Philippine Embassy appealed her case. Dalquez, who also received 100,000 peso financial assistance from the DFA, was thankful for all the assistance and support received from the government. She is set to go home to General Santos City along with her parents.
At batid po ng Embahada ng Pilipinas, maraming salamat po sa inyo na hindi kayo nagsama na tumulong sa akin na ipalabas sa bilangguan. At sa mga kapatid ko dyan, nanay, tatay, lolo at lolo, salamat po sa mga dasal niyo sa akin. Pinagdasal niyo ako na makalaya sa bilangguan. Sa puso po ako nagpapasalamat.
The Department of Foreign Affairs vows to provide more assistance to Filipinos affected by the recent Typhoon U2 in Saipan. According to Philippine Vice Consul to Guam Alex Valespin, the government has initially provided $50 or 2,500 pesos each to 400 recipients, while a private company donated the same amount to 200 more typhoon victims. The Vice Consul says their current fund is limited and they are looking to return by mid-November to continue with the aid distribution.
$50 is very modest, but I think it's a good start to help our kababayan, especially those most affected. That's why we appeal in our notice, sana yung one per family, and sana yung talagang in need.
Filipinos are grateful for the assistance they receive from the government and concerned groups. Some of them still remain in temporary shelters as their homes were damaged beyond repair.
Ano binibigay?
$50 na.
Are you okay for $50?
Opo.
Sa gobyerno ng Pilipinas, maraming salamat po. Kaya inaasikaso naman kami dito.
In other news, the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board reminds bus and jeepney drivers to secure updated fare matrices before charging higher minimum fares. The fare hike takes effect today, but based on LTFRB rules, drivers are not allowed to implement it if they are not yet yet to secure mattresses. Jeepney fares in Metro Manila, Central Luzon, and Southern Tagalog will now be 10 pesos, while fares for ordinary buses in Metro Manila will become 11 pesos and 13 pesos for air-conditioned buses.
Ni-standby muna namin ang pagtaas ng pamasahe because we are waiting for the receipt from the LTFRB. Meron kami advisory para makita ng mga pasero na para in case na mapatupad yung pagtaas pamasahe, hindi na sila ma-caught by surprise. So, ngayon tinanggal namin kasi nga as far as the operation is concerned, baka mamaya kami pa ang makasuhan. So, yun ang aming preemptive na ginawa.
And another round of fuel price rollback is likely next week to reflect the declining prices of oil in the global market. Local oil firms are expected to slash their prices of gasoline and diesel by 70 centavos per liter. No movement was seen for kerosene. If it pushes through, this will be the 4th consecutive week of oil price adjustments. And for the news abroad, here's Stephanie C. live from Hong Kong. Stephanie, good evening.
Good evening, William. The Asian community in California, USA is more eager to engage in the upcoming midterm elections. Beverly Saipan tells us why.
With the U.S. midterm elections just around the corner, the push is on to get out the vote. The Asian community is more eager than ever to head the polls next week, despite a lack of outreach by candidates to Asian voters. This election phone bank is an effort by the Orange County Asian Pacific Islander Community Alliance, or OKIPACA. Orange County, just south of Los Angeles, has the 3rd largest Asian population in the country, so the Asian vote is fast becoming a crucial one. But candidates are falling short in reaching out.
Many of our voters that when we call them, they're like, you're the first person who've ever called in language, in my native language. No one else is outreaching to us.
Despite that, Asian voters are still eager to engage in the upcoming midterms. Here at the OKIPACA phone bank, there is a noticeable change in the level of voter interest, which supports a recent survey of Asian and Pacific Islanders across the country by the APA Vote. 48% of those polled said they are more enthusiastic about voting this year compared to only 28% in 2014. The survey also found 52% of Asian voters have an unfavorable view of the Republican Party versus a 58% favorable view of Democrats. When it comes to Donald Trump, 58% disapprove of his job as president. Some of the most important issues to Asian voters are jobs, the economy, education, gun control, and citizenship. Here at the University of California, Irvine, Asian students are more energized than most because the issues are personal.
My parents are refugees from Vietnam, and so it was really important for them to have that political freedom to vote.
To me, voting is about having our voices heard, and because representation matters, especially for young people and communities of color.
Asian Americans' growing interest in political engagement gives advocates hope that this is the beginning of what will become a power that will no longer be dismissed or ignored.
Asian Americans are a force to be reckoned with, and so I think that, we're still coming of age as a community, but I look forward to the day when we can truly be a political force to be reckoned with as well.
With Asian Americans, the fastest growing voting bloc in the U.S., that day of reckoning may come sooner than later. Beverly Saipan, UNTV News and Rescue, San Diego, California.
The pilot of a Lion Air flight from Indonesia's Bali Island on Sunday made a radio alert minutes after takeoff due to technical problems, but they were overcome and he pushed on to Jakarta. The same jet crashed on another flight hours later, killing all 189 people on board. Herzan, chief of the airport authority for the Bali Nusa Tenggara area, says that after the alert, the pilot updated the control tower to say that the plane was flying normally and he would not return to the airport as requested. Indonesian authorities retrieved a black box from the doomed Lion Air jet. Indonesia's Transportation Safety Committee will analyze its data in Jakarta, which could take up to 2 weeks. Searchers have yet to find the second black box containing the recordings of cockpit conversations. Google workers around the globe staged brief walkouts following a New York Times report on a sexual harassment case filed against its former executive. Meanwhile, rights group Human Rights Watch states in a report that sexual abuse against women has become common in South Korea. Thio tells us why.
Thousands of Google employees and contractors staged brief midday walkouts on Thursday at offices across Asia, Europe, and North America to protest sexism, racism, and unchecked executive power in their workplace. The actions follow a New York Times report last week that said Google in 2014 gave a $90 million exit package to Andy Rubin after the then senior vice president was accused of sexual harassment. Rubin denied the allegation in the story, which he also said contained wild exaggerations about his compensation. Google did not dispute the report.
I don't think Google has been an outlier, and I don't think that that's a good thing. I think Google should strive to be an outlier, like letting accused executives quietly walk away with buckets full of cash is standard, and it really should not be.
In South Korea, North Korean officials commit sexual abuse against women with near total impunity, according to a report from rights group Human Rights Watch. HRW said such abuse is so common it has become part of ordinary life. The report is based on interviews with 62 North Koreans who fled the country and provided detailed accounts of rape and sexual abuse. The group said it revealed a culture of open, unaddressed abuse, particularly from men in positions of power. And in Brazil, Brazil's far-right president-elect has convinced crusading anti-corruption judge Sergio Moro to become his justice minister, the two said on Thursday, stirring celebration and outcry by hiring the jurist who jailed his chief political rival. Moro oversaw the so-called Operation Car Wash that convicted former leftist President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva of bribery and money laundering, blocking him from running against Bolsonaro earlier this year when he led opinion polls. Moro said on Thursday it was an honor to be asked to be the Minister of Overseeing Justice and Public Security. Kat Dumaraos, UNTV News and Rescue.
Thousands of people in the South Korean capital cooked up a 40-ton feast of traditional spicy cabbage known as kimchi at a charity event for the city's poor. Sporting red hats and pink gloves, more than 2,000 people gathered around long tables set up in Seoul City Hall Square. Organizers said 3,000 people will make kimchi for a Guinness World Record on Sunday, and they are aiming to make a total of 165 tons of kimchi for 3 days to distribute to the poor in Seoul. Per capita consumption of kimchi in South Korea is 36.1 kilograms per year, according to the World Institute of Kimchi. And those are the news from the other parts of the globe. Back to you, William.
Thank you very much, Stephanie C. live from Hong Kong. Paraplegics will now have a chance to walk again using a spinal cord stimulation implant developed by Swiss-based scientists. Here's why from Jovic Permas.
With every step, the strain and effort is etched on Sebastian Tobler's face. 2 years ago, walking would have been unimaginable for the 47-year-old, who was paralyzed from the waist down after a bicycle accident 5 years ago. But thanks to a spinal implant developed by Swiss-based scientists, he's able to take tentative steps towards rehabilitation and increased independence.
So Sebastian basically had no ability to activate single muscles of both legs. It's what we say like a motor complete paraplegia.
Last year, Tobler underwent an experimental procedure where a spinal cord stimulator was implanted in his body. It acts as a bridge between the brain and the paralyzed limbs, restoring some cerebral communication across the damaged site. During a training session at Lausanne University Hospital or CHUV, Tobler worked with a physical therapist as he used crutches to walk up and down a treatment room. Each step takes great concentration, with Tobler retraining his brain to communicate with his legs. Two US-based studies were recently published that presented a similar approach to restoring limited locomotion in paraplegics. But Greg Walker-Teen from the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, Lausanne, said their use of continuous electrical stimulation protocols has drawbacks compared to his team's modulated stimulation.
What we do is apply the stimulation at the correct location with a timing that coincides with the intended movement. So that you can really increase the stimulation amplitude and have a very powerful effect that really coincides with the residual command from the brain. This is why it works so well. And it's so also physiological compared to other more empirical continuous stimulation technology.
3 paraplegics in total have now received the spinal cord implant for Curtin's experimental research, the result of which are published in Nature and Neuroscience on Thursday. All 3 are now able to walk with the aid of crutches or a walker. The main challenge for the patients was to coordinate their brain's intention to walk with a targeted electrical stimulation. Curtin said that after a few months of training, patients were even able to control previously paralyzed leg muscles without electrical stimulation. Spinal cord injury can, however, take many forms. Jocelyn Bloch, a neurosurgeon at CHUV who implanted the devices in each of the patients, said that such a treatment wouldn't work for the most severe injuries.
So it's very important to have the last part of the spinal cord intact, because that's where we are going to implant the electrodes. And if this is injured, it's very hard to predict what is going to happen with the stimulation.
The spinal implant is a 3-inch long flexible piece of silicone with electrodes embedded, but it is old technology, normally used to alleviate neuropathic pain, that the Swiss team have adapted for their research. Bloch said the next step is to develop tailored neurotechnology. Bloch and Curtin have now founded a startup called GTX Medical to use their findings to develop the next implant. Their ultimate aim is to turn their experimental research into a treatment available at hospitals everywhere. Now 1 year with the implant, Sebastian Tobler found it hard to describe the feeling as his body slowly regains control over his paralyzed limbs. But with every step, he's excited for what the future holds.
I feel that 1 year after I progress with some movement. I'm just looking forward what will bring me the next day, the next year, then 10 years after, what will I see in my body? New changing, something who change, some new movements perhaps, who knows?
Jovic Bermas, UNTV News and Rescue.
The inventor of the World Wide Web thinks that Silicon Valley technology giants such as Facebook and Google have grown so dominant and that the speed of innovation could cut these players down to size. Charlie Barredo tells us why.
The World Wide Web is a crowded space, and its inventor, Tim Berners-Lee, says giants like Facebook and Google have too much clout there. With the digital revolution giving tech companies so much power, the Brit says they may have to be split up. Berners-Lee believes the speed of innovation could cut some of the biggest technology players down to size.
I think we do have a danger of concentration, but on the other hand also, we should, before breaking them up, we should hang around to see whether in fact they end up getting just disrupted, not by a small player coming and beating them out of the market, but by the market shifting. To be the interest suddenly going somewhere else.
Dubbed the father of the internet, Berners-Lee invented the web in 1989. But he has been dismayed by recent scandals over the abuse of personal data online and the use of social media to spread hate. The computer scientist said he is disappointed with how his creation has evolved.
Originally, the excitement of the web was it was decentralized. It gave everybody, it made everybody feel that they were valued for their own contribution. We've lost the feeling of individual empowerment. Yep. And to a certain extent, also, I think the optimism has cracked.
Apple, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and Facebook have a combined market capitalization of $3.7 trillion. That's equal to Germany's gross domestic product last year. Charlie Barredo, UNTV News and Rescue.
Jamaican sprinter Usain Bolt leaves Australia's Central Coast Mariners Football Club. Meanwhile, top seeds Roger Federer and Novak Djokovic both made it through the quarterfinals of the Paris Masters. Asher Kadapan Jr. tells us why.
Usain Bolt's trial with Australian football club Central Coast Mariners has come to an end. The 31-year-old Jamaican, 8-time Olympic sprint champion, joined the A-League side for an indefinite training period in August. He scored 2 goals in the first effort for the Mariners in a friendly, but did not play matches when the season began. Efforts to secure a commercial solution to keep Bolt at the club had failed, the Mariners said on Friday. Up to 3 minutes of match action and no more than 90 seconds per match in regularly scheduled television news bulletins. Roger Federer and Novak Djokovic both made it through the quarterfinals of the Paris Masters. World number 3 Federer beat Italian Fabio Fognini 6-4, 6-3 in 1 hour and 13 minutes. Federer saved 2 break points when serving at 4-3 up in the second set, and after holding, immediately broke Fognini to seal the victory. Second seed Djokovic reached the last 8 after Bosnia's Damir Zummer retired with a back injury. The Serb, 31, who will take the world number 1 ranking from Rafael Nadal on Monday, was leading 6-1, 2-1 when Zummer ended the match. 3-time TCS New York City Marathon champion Mary Cadeny said she's ready to battle last year's winner Shalane Flanagan to win this year's race. Cadeny, who won the marathon in New York City in 2014, 2015, and 2016, said New York feels like home. Fellow Kenyan Geoffrey Kamworor is seeking to defend his champion title after winning his first major marathon last year in New York. More than 50,000 runners will participate in the TCS New York City Marathon on Sunday, November 4. Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue.
And those are the reasons behind the news, November 2nd, 2018. I am William Thio. Because we need to know, we will always ask why. Good evening.
UNTV, your public service channel.